A man dies in Fresno police custody after they say he shot his ex-girlfriend, carjacked a mother, and kidnapped her 4 children inside the vehicle. Thanks for joining us. I'm Kirsten Mitchell. This story is a lot to unpack, but we're going to walk you through what we know so far.
Coming to us from yourcentralvalley.com out of Fresno, California. A man died while in police custody after he was arrested for shooting his ex-girlfriend in Selma on Saturday afternoon, according to Fresno Police Department. Just after 12 p.m., Fresno County Sheriff's deputies were called out to a home near Golden State Boulevard and Denuba Avenue for a report of domestic violence. When the deputies arrived, they found a woman suffering from a gunshot wound to her face in the back room, and she was rushed to a local hospital where police say she's in critical condition. Following the shooting, police say the suspect, later identified as the victim's 39-year-old ex-boyfriend, carjacked a mother and her 4 children and started driving towards Fresno with the family still inside the car.
Police Chief Paco Balderrama says the suspect resisted arrest, and when they finally got him into handcuffs, officers say they noticed he was having what they describe as medical issues, and he died at a hospital an hour later.
The issue appears to be that this is something related to drug abuse and perhaps excited delirium.
Fresno Police Chief Paco Balderrama explaining the death of a man in police custody on Saturday afternoon. He says it started in Selma when the suspect, a 39-year-old man, allegedly shot his ex-girlfriend in the face, then carjacked a vehicle with a mother and her 4 children inside.
That vehicle made its way towards Fresno. One of the children was, from what I understand, very, very smart and actually faked an asthma attack to where the suspect pulled over and kicked the family out of the vehicles.
According to police, the suspect then drove to a neighborhood in southeast Fresno where he began knocking on doors and appeared to be under the influence of drugs.
Police say the suspect ended up pulling over and letting the family out of the car before driving into a neighborhood near Peach and Butler Avenues.
Incoherent, wasn't really making any sense.
When officers arrived, Balderrama says a group of officers tried to handcuff him, but he resisted. So they used a taser and eventually used 3 handcuffs to detain him.
The suspect was still talking, breathing, was still being combative with the officers, tried to kick him several times.
Balderrama says officers began noticing he was suffering from medical issues while emergency personnel arrived on the scene. The suspect was then taken to CRMC where he died an hour later. Officials say the suspect is a convicted gang member on parole with an active warrant. Balderrama says he's seen body camera footage and does not believe officers acted inappropriately.
The officers are simply trying to talk to this person, trying to get him to calm down, asking him for his arms, trying to get him, cuffed and secured, at which point he starts having medical complications.
The 4 officers on the scene are now on leave while the incident is investigated by the Homicide Unit, city attorneys, and Office of Independent Review.
The suspect was taken to a nearby hospital where police say he later died. This is why I'm giving you this story. Chief Balderrama said, here it goes, the issue appears to be that it is something related to drug abuse and perhaps excited delirium. Get back to that. The suspect's cause of death is currently unknown and being investigated as an in-custody death. Authorities have not released the suspect's identity, but say he was a known gang member. They always say that. Well, it's a gang member. You don't know that. And was on parole at the time of his death. Being a gang member, cops say that. I don't know if I always believe it. But I wanted to get to excited delirium. Here's one where the chief says, it looks perhaps like it could have been excited delirium that caused his death. And that's what another police officer had told me one time. Look, when you get these people with mental health issues and they start acting up, you got to take them down and restrain them because they could die from excited delirium. And I don't know if I actually agreed with that at the time. I don't think I really believed it. But my thing is, so the person's really excited. You don't want them to die for excited delirium. So what do? You tackle them and take them to the ground to get them to calm down. What do? They get more excited. But we can't always talk them down. But there are so many people with mental health issues that die at the hands of the police. Well, you need to be somewhat trained in psychology. You're a police officer, you're a law enforcement officer, you're dealing with the public, you're dealing with people that have drug issues, alcohol issues, mental issues. They're partially demented, they have somewhat dementia. They've been on the streets, they're not there anymore, their reality's gone. They've been living on the streets, and they just their eyes are glassed over and they're foggy, and they don't, they've lost reality. You, as a police officer, you're a first responder, you're the first one there. You have to be trained in psychology to a certain level so that you can talk to them. No, we're not trained psychologists, we're trained cops. Oh, okay, so tase the guy. It doesn't work. He's coming at me. Oh my God, he's got something in his hand. Oh, it was a pipe. I'm not saying all cops are like that, but there are too many like that. But these police academies refuse to teach psychology and de-escalation. When I went through 2 police academies, California and Texas. And do you know the de-escalation techniques they taught us? It's called verbal judo. And even here in California, we had a sheriff's deputy, he's a sergeant, that taught it. And he would go, "We're going to talk today about verbal judo. Talk you down." He was very funny, but verbal judo. Now, verbal judo is great, but I believe you need to add in some psychology courses or some psychology education along with it. Because they didn't really teach us psychology, they just taught us verbal judo. How to come back at somebody, verbal judo. They taught us the steps of use of force, from uniform presence down to the ultimate tragedy. But not psychology. In Texas, they teach diabetes training. They do. They teach thoroughly. I don't know if they do it now, but when I went through the police academy there at the time, they taught us an 8-hour block of training on diabetes and diabetics, so that we could pretty much gauge a little bit, hey, is this guy an alcoholic? Not alcoholic. Is this guy, intoxicated right now on alcohol, or is he having a diabetic reaction? Because a Texas cop had jailed a guy who was having a diabetic reaction, and when his attorney finally found out, he ran down there and said, Are you killing my client? They said, "No, he's just drunk." "No, he's not drunk. He's a diabetic." And they finally went in and had a medic look at him, and he didn't have any blood alcohol level. He was having a diabetic reaction, and he was about to die. So they taught that, but they don't teach psychology, how to deal with the mentally ill. What do you all think? You let me know in the comment section below.